Scarface, the gang boss, raised his wineglass, and the uproar in the room instantly fell silent. "That useless bastard, surnamed Yi, has finally been dealt with." He smiled, took a sip of red wine, and swept his gaze across the dozen or so trusted men present. His second, Dinko man, Chen Ji Yuan, whom everyone called Brother Chen, immediately stood up, full of fawning flattery. "Don't worry, boss. I personally broke both his legs and buried him in the mass grave in the south of the city, a 10-foot deep pit with a bluestone slab pressed on top. Even if the gods themselves came, he wouldn't be able to crawl out." Scarface nodded in satisfaction. "What about that ancestral compass of his? I checked it after we dug it out. Just some worthless busted bronze junk." Chen Jiayuan smiled even more smugly. "I thought it was bad luck, so I threw it back in the pit and dumped 2 buckets of shit water over it. Even if someone wanted to dig him up, they'd think it stinks too much." The whole room burst into laughter. Scarface set down his wineglass, leaned back against the leather sofa, and let out a long breath. For 10 years, that bastard Yi had kept getting in his way, obstructing him at every turn. Finally, peace and quiet. "What did that trash say before he died?" he asked casually. Chen Jiyuan thought for a moment. Something like compass and Keyman. Some crazy nonsense. Couldn't hear it too clearly. His mouth was full of blood. Just deathbed hallucinations. Scarface lit a cigar. "Dead is dead. Tonight, we're all heading to the club to relax. My treat." Everyone cheered. No one knew that down in that 10-foot deep pit, Ye Chen, who should have already breathed his last, was opening his eyes. The dirt pressed down, not burial, crushing, grinding him alive. Every inch of skin bore the weight. His ribs creaked under the pressure. It wasn't pain. Not exactly. It was the dull grinding sound of bones hanging between broken and unbroken. He wasn't even sure if he was still alive, because this was what a corpse would feel like. Too heavy, wasif, cold, rotting. His mouth was full of dirt and the stench of shit water. That smell wasn't something he was just smelling. It was being poured into him, through his nostrils, the corners of his mouth, even his ear holes, like someone had dumped a bucket of filthy slop over his head. Mud had sealed his throat shut. He wanted to cough, but his chest was pinned down so hard it wouldn't budge. He couldn't even lift a single rib. His lungs felt like they were on fire. Every attempt to breathe was useless. The air had become a red-hot iron rod, stabbing down his throat, and wherever it reached, something exploded. His ears rang with a ceaseless hum, interrupted now and then by the muffled sound of dirt collapsing. The layer above him was still settling, bit by bit, like a sandglass, counting down. Going to die. The thought was crystal clear, almost strangely calm. Then his chest exploded, not figuratively. It really burned, like someone had pressed a red-hot iron block onto his heart. The ancestral bronze compass head worn close to his body for 20 years was glowing. Blue-green light pierced through the dirt, splitting a crack through the blackness of the pit. The compass shattered, fragments of every size scattered through the soil, but most of them turned into blue-green motes of light the moment they touched air, like fireflies burrowing into his skin. Only the core fragment, no bigger than an old Chinese coin, didn't dissolve. It lay quietly in the dirt, giving off a faint bronze glow. Those light motes surged through his veins toward his limbs, and his bones began to itch. Not flesh, bone marrow. It was his marrow itself, boiling. The places where his bones had broken started clicking and cracking, like someone tightening screws inside them. The itch turned to heat. The heat turned to strength. His left hand could move. His right arm could brace. A burst of violent pain shot through both legs. Then the pain vanished, and he could bend them. He dug at the dirt in front of him with his hands. Once, twice, 3 times. In his mind, on the 8 gates disc, the gate of life lit up green. Strength surged to his fingertips. The dirt became as soft as tofu beneath his hands. Broken wood and crushed stone as light as paper. But with every scoop, his chest flared with pain. The 8 gates weren't free. Every gate he opened was power borrowed from his own life. The dirt loosened. The instant air rushed in. He gasped like a drowning man, surfacing for breath. The moonlight was bleak and pale, shining over crooked grave mounds. A cold wind slapped paper ash against his face. Somewhere in the distance, an owl cried, and the sound was like a baby sobbing. Yi Chen braced himself against a dead tree and stood covered in mud. He looked down at his own hands, perfectly intact. Even the rope marks around his wrists had faded. The bronze tattoo on his chest gave off a faint warmth, as though something were flowing under his skin. He crouched by the edge of the pit, dug around, and found that coin-sized bronze fragment in the dirt. He strung it on a red cord and hung it back around his neck. A vision appeared in his mind, a bronze-colored disc floating in darkness, slowly turning. It was divided into 8 sections, and one of them glowed green, pointing southeast. Instinctively, he took one step in that direction. The pain in the soles of his feet eased immediately. "I'm alive again," he said hoarsely. And if I'm alive, then this isn't over. He remembered every face of every man who had thrown him into that pit. Scarface, Chen Ji Yuan, the little punks who had pinned down his arms and legs. Not one of them would be spared. He started walking downhill. After 20 minutes, he stopped. West. 3 yards ahead of him was the same pit head just crawled out of. The blood at the edge was still there. On the crooked neck tree beside it still hung the torn belt Chen Ji Yuan had casually tossed there while stripping off his clothes. He walked again and circled back again. The third time, he snapped off a branch and stuck it into the ground, then lowered his head and walked south. 15 minutes later, the branch appeared 2 steps ahead of him. Ghost wall. The 8 gates disc in his mind shook violently. The gate of life was covered by a layer of gray mist, and the gate of death lit up a blinding red. His current position was stuck in the crack between 2 gates. Someone had laid out a formation over this whole graveyard. The night suddenly deepened, not because the sky had darkened, but because all the light around him had been sucked away. Moonlight gone. Starlight gone. The wild grass whipped madly, though there was no wind, making a rustling noise like countless people whispering in his ear. The temperature plunged. His breath came out white. A white shadow drifted from behind a nearby tree trunk. It didn't walk out. It peeled itself off like a sheet of paper from a wall and glided into the air. Its long hair dragged on the ground, leaving a wet trail through the dead grass. The white dress it wore was in tatters, stained with wide patches of dark red, dried blood. It drifted closer. Yi Chen saw its face. It was not a face any living human should have. Its skin was a bluish gray, like a corpse left too long. A deep wound split the left cheek. The flesh turned outward, exposing the white bone beneath. Its lips were a bruised black purple, with dried blood at the corners. Worst of all were the eyes. The sclera was completely black. The pupils were gray-white, as if something had pasted them over from the inside. A deep ligature mark circled its neck, flesh sunken in where a rope had cut, showing the windpipe underneath. This wasn't some pretty ghost. This was a woman who had died horribly. She opened her mouth. Her voice was hoarse, like shattered glass stuffed down her throat. "Leave 100 billion ghost banknotes, or I'll trap you here forever." Yi Chen froze, not because he was scared, though, yes, he definitely was scared, but because the 8 gates disc in his mind automatically cast a divination. This ghost was a wrong spirit from a violent death, full of concentrated resentment. But it wasn't a vengeful ghost out for lives. It was shaking him down. A ghost this miserable. And she was running a protection racket. He searched his body and pulled a crumpled 1 yuan bill from one pocket and a 50-cent coin from another. 1 yuan and 50 cents total. "Miss," he held the money up for her to see. "I just got buried alive by the mob. I've only got 150 on me. I don't even have living person money. Where am I supposed to get 100 billion ghost banknotes to burn for you?" The ghost's gray-white pupils stared at the money in his hand in silence for 5 full seconds. Then her floating hair drooped, like a puffed-up cat, suddenly deflating. She cursed, and her voice lost the shattered glass rasp and took on a sharp, foul-mouthed edge instead. That goddamn Scarface. He couldn't even dump corpses on the right date, and he had to dump you on my turf. Do you know how hard it is for me to wait around for a single job? Yi Chen's shoulders loosened a little. You know, Scarface too. Know him? I know. 18 generations of his ancestors. The ghost jabbed a bluish-white finger at his face, the nail black and ugly. 12 years ago, he led men to wipe out my whole Sioux family. After they strangled me to death, they threw me into this mass grave without even a nameless tombstone. Daoist Shanyin nailed my soul to this graveyard to watch the road for them. 12 years. I've been here. I can't leave. I can't reincarnate. The angrier she got, the more black liquid seeped from the wound on her face. Yi Chen looked at the rope mark on her neck and lowered his voice a little. Sioux family. Sioux Wan, she said. My name's Sioux Wan. Scarface killed my whole family over a compass. That compass was your Yi family's. Yi Chen fell silent for a moment. Enemies didn't always make friends, but a common enemy could. If I burn paper for you and help you settle the account with Scarface and Daoist Shanyin, he said, can you help me find Chen Zhiyuan? Su Wan lifted her head, and a flicker passed through those gray-white pupils. You didn't die properly, did you? Almost. Fine. She pointed downhill. Night. Fragrance Billiards Hall. Chen Zhiyuan's little gambling den. He isn't there tonight, but a few of the thugs who pinned down your arms and legs are. The gambling money's stashed there too. Go wreck the place first. Buy me paper money. Then he'll tell you the next step. How do you know all this? I've been drifting along this road for 12 years. Anything that moves within 30 miles reaches my ears. Yeah. Chen nodded. Deal. He turned and walked downhill. This time, the gate of life's direction was crystal clear. The ghost wall was broken after only a few steps. Su Wan called out behind him. Hey, he stopped. Don't keep calling me miss, she said. Yi Chen didn't turn around, but he nodded once in the dark. Night. Fragrance Billiards Hall. 1:30 in the morning. The storefront wasn't large, with the rolling shutter only half pulled down. Dim yellow light leaked through the gap. 3 cars were parked outside, all their plates covered with camouflage cloth. Yi Chen crouched in the shadows of the building opposite and activated the Gate of Rest on the 8 gates disc in his mind. The character Rest lit up. A faint layer of qi flowed around his body. His heartbeat slowed. His breathing softened. Even his body temperature dropped. The price was just as clear. His chest felt like it had been doused in ice water. A cold ache boring through him. He walked to the shutter, pressed a palm against the electronic lock, and used the open gate. The mechanism gave a tiny click, and the door slid open silently. The underground casino was bigger than he expected, 100-odd square meters, with 4 card tables. Old fluorescent tubes hung from the ceiling, their light as dim as dusk. A statue of Guan Yu hung on the wall directly opposite the door, red cloth tied to the blade. Wind blew in through a broken window, making the red cloth flutter like a blade chopping off heads. 7 or 8 men sat around the card tables. One bald man had his back to the door, with a scorpion tattoo on the back of his head. That was him, the one who had held down Yi Chen's right hand, while Chen Jiran broke his legs. Yi Chen didn't strike immediately. He activated the Gate of Terror, and a formless, baleful qi spread over the ground. The fluorescent lights on the ceiling began to flicker, on and off, like someone squeezing the electrical wires. One by one, phone signals died, snow appearing on all their screens. The speaker in the corner suddenly spat out an ear-splitting screech of static, then started playing a warped bit of music, like a radio tuned to a frequency that didn't exist. What the hell? The bald man looked up. The fluorescent lights died completely, not because the bulbs burst. They went out in sequence, from far away to near, as if darkness itself were flooding in like a tide. Only the 2 red candles in front of the Guan Yu statue remained lit, making every face look smeared in blood. Then, the shadows on the wall began to move. The bald man's shadow peeled itself off the wall, stretched out one hand, and laid it on the shoulder of the skinny man next to him. The skinny man whipped around. No one was there, but on his shoulder was a black handprint, like a burn mark. Ghost, ghost. The bald man slapped him. Shut up, What ghost? Before he finished speaking, the red cloth on Guan Yu's blade fell to the floor, not from the wind. The knot untied itself. The cloth landed, and green flames burst up from it. The bald man's hands started shaking. He thought of one person. Could it be that guy? Surnamed Yi. Did he come back for us? Bullshit. Another thug forced himself to say, Hess, dead. Chen Jian buried him himself. 10 feet deep. Not even a god could crawl out. The words had barely landed when the mahjong tiles in the center of the table flipped by themselves. Not one tile. All of them, 144 tiles, flipped over in perfect unison. The green backs began to show writing, not dots, bamboo, and characters. 2 names, Scarface, Chen Jiyuan, and beside them, 1 line of smaller text. Tonight, it's your turn. The bald man's legs gave out. He collapsed and started backing up until he hit the wall. The skinny man was already crying, kneeling and knocking his head against the floor. Brother, yes, Brother Yi, it wasn't me. Shen Jiuan made us hold you down. Yi Chen stepped out of the shadows. The gate of rest was withdrawn, and his figure slowly became clear in the candlelight. Mud still covered him. Several blood marks from branches cut across his face. He looked like a man who had just crawled out of a grave. You. The bald man's eyes bulged. You're not dead. Ye Chen said nothing. He walked over, crouched in front of him. The bronze tattoo on his chest glowed faintly. My legs healed. Ye Chen said, Now, it's your turn. The bald man wanted to run, but his legs were too weak to stand. He wanted to draw his gun, but his hand shook too badly to even open the holster. Yi Chen grabbed him by the collar and hauled him up from the floor. The gate of wound spun into motion, and he smashed a fist into the bald man's knee. Crack! The bald man hurt so badly, he couldn't even scream. His mouth hung open, only a choking gargle coming from his throat. His right leg bent at an impossible angle, and his whole body collapsed onto the floor like mud. The skinny man fainted outright. Some of the other thugs knelt to beg. Others dove under the tables. Yi Chen didn't bother chasing them. He searched the bald man's body and found a set of car keys, then dug through the card table drawers and came up with over 5,000 in cash and a ledger listing all the extortion money they had squeezed from nearby vendors, elderly people, and small shop owners. He snapped photos of the ledger and stuffed it into his backpack. When he turned to leave and reached the door, he heard someone behind him dial a number. Brother Chen, the gambling den's been wrecked. That bastard, surnamed Yi, isn't dead. Has really not dead. Silence on the other end for 2 seconds. Then Chen Jiuan's voice came through, cold and flat. What the fuck? Are you drunk? I buried him with my own hands. Dead is dead. It's true. Brother Chen. The call was cut off. The corners of Yi Chen's mouth lifted slightly. 3 in the morning. Mass grave. Ghost fire floated among the graves. The paper money burned with green flames, making the surrounding tombstones look like pale white faces. Ye Ken squatted in front of Su Wan's grave. Her marker was just a bare stone, with nothing carved into it, not even a name. He threw the paper money head, exchanged for the casino cash, into the fire. From the bank of heaven and earth, 1 trillion. Spend it for now. If it isn't enough, you'll buy more next time. Su Wan drifted out from behind the grave. In the moonlight, her face seemed slightly different from before. The wound was still there, but no longer looked so hideous. The scar that ran from her left cheek down to her chin looked like a delicate silver thread under the moonlight, giving her a kind of broken beauty. Instead, her skin was still a bluish gray, but not as corpse-like. Now, more like a girl who's been gravely ill. Her lips were still dark, but her mouth tilted upward, as if smiling, or perhaps sneering. Most obvious of all were her eyes. The whites were no longer entirely black. The pupils were no longer gray-white. They had turned a deep chestnut brown, bright in the moonlight, like chestnuts in autumn. Still a ghost, but no longer so frightening. Su Wan squatted by the fire and poked at the burning paper with a tree branch, her face scrunched up. Bank of heaven and earth. I asked for the people's underworld bank. Don't you know the exchange rate? 1 trillion from heaven and earth only converts to 1 million in underworld currency. Ye Chen blinked. Ghost money has different banks. Of course, it does. Suwan jabbed the fire with the stick. Heaven and earth is printed down south. The exchange rate sucks. Inflation's terrible there. The People's Underworld Bank stuff is printed up north. Solid value. Next time, check the back when you buy. You want the kind with anti-counterfeit marks. Yi Chen drew in a breath. Fine. Ill. Remember. Suwan nodded in satisfaction and gathered some of the ash into her sleeve. Wan, Ye Chen said. You said, once I wrecked that little gambling den, you'd tell me the next step. Time to talk. Suwan stood up, and her expression turned serious. In the moonlight, the wound on her face had almost vanished, revealing a delicate, rather gentle-looking face. Her features weren't the kind to stun a room, but they were the sort you remembered. There was a faint melancholy in her brows and eyes. To raise a Daoist beside Chen Jiyon, now, the same Daoist Shanyin who nailed my soul in place. The old bastard knows a yin-shaping art. He can raise ghosts, and he can plant dreams in living people. For the past 2 nights, Chen Zhuyuan has been dreaming of you crawling out of the dirt. So, he's scared. They've already set up a formation in the bathhouse down south, just waiting for you. When, on the full moon night, Wan said, that's when his power is strongest, but the stronger his power, the more likely the formation is to show cracks. The formation core will reveal itself when the moonlight is at its peak. If you go, then you'll find an opening. Yi Chen nodded. So, the time he picked, when his strongest, is also my best chance to break his formation. Right. Wan bit her lip. Can you handle it? Well, see. Once we fight. Suwan stared at him for several seconds. Then she reached into her sleeve and took out something. Half of a broken jade pendant. The fracture line was unnaturally neat, as though it had been snapped apart on purpose. This is for you. She handed it over. It was my jade pendant when I was alive. It carries my aura. That old Taoist formation makes people see the thing they fear most. If you get trapped inside it, this can help wake you back up. Yi Chen took the broken jade. It was cool to the touch, smooth and warm beneath the coolness. He slid it into the inner pocket close to his skin. Thanks. Suwan slowly drifted back into the grave. Halfway there, she poked her head out again. By the way, next time, buy the People's Underworld Bank kind. Got it. Got it. Buy the whole box. It's cheaper. Fine. Suwan disappeared back into the dirt. Yi Chen turned and walked downhill. After a few steps, her voice floated out once more behind him. Ye Chen. He stopped. Be careful. Her voice drifted over the graveyard. No longer as hoarse as before. Softer. Now, if you die, there'll be no one left to burn paper for me. Ye Chen didn't turn around, but the corners of his mouth lifted slightly. The next evening, Ye Chen parked the van in an alley across from the billiards hall. He waited an hour. By the time the sky was fully dark, a black sedan pulled up outside. 2 burly men got out first. Then, Chen Zhuyuan. He looked thinner than 3 days ago. His eye bags heavier. After getting out, he didn't go in right away. He stood, smoking in front of the entrance, glancing around. He was afraid. Just as Yao Chen was about to leave, a scream suddenly came from deep in the alley. Help. Then the dull thud of a steel pipe hitting flesh, followed by the laughter of several young men. He hesitated 2 seconds. Tonight, he was only here to scout, not to create side complications. But among those young men's laughter was one sentence. If you don't pay, well, break your leg and dump you in the mass grave. He pushed open the car door and got out. There were no streetlights deep in the alley. 3 figures had surrounded an old man curled up on the ground. He was lying there with his hands over his head. Beside him was an overturned, roasted, sweet potato cart. Sweet potatoes rolling everywhere. I already paid. Last month. The old man's voice trembled. Last month was last month. This month is this month. One blonde-haired little punk crouched down and waved a cigarette butt in front of the old man. If you can't pay, well, break one of your legs and call it even this month. The other 2 little punks laughed along. Ye Chen walked deeper into the alley. He walked slowly, limping, His broken bones had reconnected, but moving too fast still hurt faintly. Seeing the way he walked, the blonde-haired punk laughed. A cripple wants to play hero too. Yi Chen helped the old man sit up against the wall, then turned around. Just now, you said you'd break his leg and dump him in the mass grave. The blonde punk pulled a steel pipe from behind his back. Yi Chen activated the gate of wound and drove a punch straight into the bridge of his nose. Crack! The sound of cartilage breaking. Blood burst out like a faucet, turned full open. The blonde punk's whole body snapped backward, the steel pipe flying out of his hand and clanging to the ground. Another punk whipped out a switchblade and lunged. Yi Chen opened the gate of rest, swayed aside, and the blade sliced past his clothes. He caught the attacker's wrist, twisted, and the joint dislocated. The switchblade hit the floor, and the man screamed and dropped to his knees. The last one turned and ran, stumbling and crawling. Yi Chen crouched down, picked up the steel pipe from the ground, set it across his knee, and bent it in half. The big guy who had run 2 steps turned back, saw that, and his legs gave out from under him. He hit the dirt face first. The blonde punk was still writhing on the ground, his face smeared in nose blood. He looked up at Yi Chen with eyes full of terror. You, who are you? Yi Chen didn't answer. Tell Chen Jiyuan this, he said. The man from the mass grave crawled out. The blonde punk's pupils shrank sharply. Yi Chen turned, helped the old man back to his feet, and stuffed several banknotes into his hand. Go buy a new cart. If they come again, call the police. The old man's lips trembled so badly he couldn't even speak. Yi Chen walked out of the alley, got into the van, and disappeared into the night. The third day, full moon. During the daytime, Yi Chen didn't go out. He parked the van beneath an abandoned bridge, closed his eyes, and ran the 8 gates disc in his mind. The positions of the 8 gates were already engraved into his memory. The gate of life extended life, but also took it. The gate of death cut lives, and burned away his own yang fire. The remaining consciousness in the compass fragment had told him very clearly that the gate of death could not be opened recklessly. Open it once, and 1 inch of your yang fire vanished. If it killed an innocent, the backlash would be even worse. He didn't kill innocents, but debts of blood had to be repaid. At dusk, he drove toward the bathhouse in South City. The place Su Wan had named looked gold and dazzling from the outside. Several luxury cars were parked in front. He left the van 300 meters away and approached on foot. The back entrance of the bathhouse opened into a narrow alley, with trash bins piled against the wall and a sour smell hanging in the air. He activated the gate of rest, suppressing his presence to the utmost, and slipped in through the back door. The hallway lights were dim. Carpet swallowed all sound from his footsteps. In his pocket, Su Wan's broken jade gave off a faint chill. Second floor, at the end of the hallway, behind a pair of double doors, voices sounded. Chen Jiyuan's voice. Why won't that bastard answer his phone? Someone else. No idea. Maybe has asleep. Trash. Can't trust him to handle a damn thing. Yi Chen pushed open the doors. The room was huge. In the middle stood a massage bed with sofas and a tea table nearby. 2 white candles burned atop the tea table, their flames perfectly straight, not moving at all. Blood-red runes covered the floor, stretching from the doorway all the way to the bed. Chen Jiyuan stood beside the bed, a gun in his hand, already aimed at the door. His eyes were bloodshot, his face drenched in sweat, but mixed in with the fear was a thread of madness. He hadn't run, not because he didn't want to, because Daoist Shanyin had told him, you can't run. He'll find you, sooner or later. Better to set the formation and wait for him here. Tonight, the moon is full. My power is strongest. If he comes, he dies. On the sofa, an old Taoist in gray robes slowly stood up. He looked around, 60, thin, hair gray-white, tied into a knot. In his hand he held a black command tablet. He gave Yi Chen one glance, smiling faintly. I've been waiting for you. 2 days, Daoist Shanyin said. The night before last, I cast a divination and learned you'd come. I chose the full moon to wait, because tonight my power is strongest. Since you've come, then you've come to die. Chen Jiyuan raised the gun, finger on the trigger. You really didn't die. How the hell could you still be alive? Yeah, Chen didn't look at him. He stared only at Daoist Shanyin. It was your hand that slaughtered the Su family. Daoist Shanyin's smile didn't change. The Su family protected your Yi families, 8 Gates disc, and refused to hand it over. Naturally, they deserved to die. As for that little girl's soul, I nailed it to the mass grave for 12 years. If she still had the ability to pass messages to you, then I suppose that's her own skill. Yi Chen's eyes darkened. Fire! Daoist Shanyin shouted. Bang! Chen Jiwan pulled the trigger. The bullet shot toward him. Yi Chen opened the gate of rest, his body swaying, and the bullet grazed his shoulder before slamming into the wall behind him. Before he could even think, the second shot came. This time, he activated the gate of life. Warm power exploded in his chest, and when the bullet reached him, it struck what felt like an invisible barrier, veered off, and screamed past his ear. His chest tore with pain. Chen Jian tried to fire the third shot, but Yi Chen had already closed in. The gate of wound spun, and one punch smashed into Chen Jiuan's wrist. The gun flew free, hit the wall, and bounced to the floor. Chen Jiuan screamed. His wrist hung limp at an unnatural angle. Back! Daoist Shanyin slammed the black tablet against the floor, and the runes lit with a dark red glow. At the center of the room, a black circle appeared, not painted black, a true blackness, like a hole had been dug through the floor into pure nothingness. A hand reached out of that black circle, bluish-black skin, twice the size of a normal human hand, nails long and sharp, then a second hand, then a head. The thing had no nose, only a mouth split sideways from one ear to the other. Its eyes sat on the top of its head, round and lidless. Once its whole body had crawled free, it stood 10 feet tall, wrapped in rusted chains from head to foot, a century-old, fierce ghost. On a full moon night, the ghost's aura was stronger than Yi Chen had expected. Chen Jian had collapsed in the corner by now, unable to even scream at the sight of it. Daoist Shanyin smiled faintly. Your 8 Gates disc has only just awakened. How much of it can you even use? I've raised this fierce ghost for 20 years, and tonight it is at full strength. What exactly do you have that can fight me? Yay. Chen's hands trembled, though not from fear. He was activating the gate of scenery, wildly drawing in the energy around him, the baleful force in the runic formation, the death chi in the black circle, even the flames of the white candles. All of it was sucked toward him. At the same time, his eyes kept scanning the room. Suwan had said the formation would become unstable under the full moon, and the formation core would reveal itself. All the blood-red runes were writhing. Only one rune beneath the leg of the massage bed flickered as though the contact was bad. There, the fierce ghost pounced, sweeping its chains. Yi Chen opened the gate of rest and dodged, his back crashing through the tea table. Daoist Shanyin thought he was retreating and let out a cold laugh. Why run? Didn't you come for revenge? Yi Chen didn't answer. He kept stepping backward toward the massage bed. Every step made the energy flooding in through the gate of scenery grow heavier. His vision dimmed. His ears rang. Suddenly, Suwan's broken jade turned icy cold, snapping his mind clear. For a moment, he shut his eyes. In his mind, there was only one image. Zhong Kui, 20 years ago. An old television set at his grandmother's house had once played that show. Red robe, black hat, thick beard, furious eyes, 7-star sword. He remembered Zhong Kui's appearance. He remembered the scene where Zhong Kui split a ghost in half with one slash. He didn't need the real Zhong Kui. He only needed Daoist Shanyin and this fierce ghost to believe Zhong Kui had arrived. The gate of scenery exploded. The energy gathered in midair, condensing into a giant 10-foot-tall figure. Red robes blazed like fire, black face like forged iron, eyes the size of bronze bells glaring at the bluish-black ghost. In its hand gleamed a sword of chilling light. Then Zhong Kui spoke, voice rolling like thunder through a valley. What evil creature dares cause chaos in the human world? The fierce ghost froze. It had no true intelligence. But instinct alone told it the thing before it was its natural enemy. It let out a shriek sharp as an infant's scream and turned to flee. Ye Chen had been waiting for exactly this instant. He drove one foot down on the rune beneath the massage bed's leg. The formation core shattered. The blood-red runes curled black and broke apart like paper set on fire. The black hole in the floor began shrinking. The fierce ghost's body started being dragged backward, sucked toward it. It fought desperately. The chains wrapped around the doorframe, but still, it was pulled inch by inch back into the hole. Zhong Kui raised one hand and barked in a voice like iron. "Return!" The fierce ghost vanished completely. The black hole sealed shut. The room fell silent. Yi Chen braced both hands on his knees and gasped for breath, his vision washing dark again and again. Daoist Shanyin was slumped on the sofa, black blood at the corner of his mouth. The black command tablet in his hand had split cleanly in two. The full moon had brought his power to its peak, but it had also made the backlash from the broken formation far more severe. Ye Chen walked over, grabbed Daoist Shanyin by the collar, and dragged him up off the sofa. "Your fierce ghost is gone. Your command tablet is shattered, and the formation's broken." Yi Chen panted. "From this moment on, your cultivation is finished." He activated the Gate of Wound and slammed a palm into Daoist Shanyin's lower dantian. The old Daoist let out a scream and collapsed like a punctured sack, face turning ashen, his hair whitened. All at once, the cultivation head built over decades was gone in an instant. You crippled me." Daoist Shanyin's voice drifted out like it came from a grave. "You sold yourself to the gang and slaughtered the whole Su family for them." This day was always coming. Yi Chen let go, and the old Daoist collapsed to the floor. Behind him came the sound of Chen Zhuyuan crying. Chen Jirian had shrunk back into the corner. His right wrist was broken, his face white as paper. "Don't kill me. I was wrong. I really was wrong. I'll give you money. I'll give you all my money." Yi Chen walked over and crouched so they were eye level. "When you broke both my legs, you said one sentence." Yi Chen said, "You said, trash! Even if you die, don't come looking for me." Tears and snot ran together down Chen Zhuyuan's face. In Yi Chen's mind flashed the pit, darkness, mud, suffocation, stench, and the endless cold of 3 silent days. His hand pressed against Chen Zhuyuan's chest. The gate of death opened. A streak of black light burrowed into Chen Zhuyuan's heart meridian. His eyes bulged. His lips moved. No sound came out. He collapsed to the floor, like someone who had suddenly died from illness. Breath gone. The yang fire in Yi Chen's chest dimmed with it. A metallic sweetness surged up into his throat. The gate of death took life from others, but also shaved away his own. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and stood. In the room, one man was dead. One man was crippled. That left Scarface. South City Private Club. 1 in the morning. Villa number 3. 3 floors tall. 2 bodyguards in black suits stood at the gate. 2 more patrolled the yard with a German shepherd. The wall was 10 feet high, topped with an electric fence. Yi Chen activated the Gate of Rest and walked to a corner of the wall, pressing his palm against the surface. He sent the force of the open gate through the wiring. Pop! The electric fence shorted out. He vaulted over the wall and landed silently. The German shepherd pricked its ears and looked in his direction. He froze. The dog sniffed once, then lay back down. He walked to the back door, pressed his palm against the electronic lock, and opened it. A green light flashed, and the door opened a crack. Kitchen, hallway, stairs. He moved through the camera blind spots, each step landing exactly along the safest route shown by the 8 gates disc in his mind. Passing the security room on the first floor, he paused, used the open gate to push the door open, removed the hard drive from the surveillance system, and stuffed it into his bag before continuing upstairs. At the end of the hallway, on the second floor, voices sounded from behind a pair of double doors. Scarface's voice. "Why can't I get Chen Zhuyuan on the phone?" "I don't know. Maybe Hez asleep." "Worthless dog. Can't trust him with anything." Yi Chen pushed the door open. The room was huge. Scarface sat on a sofa, cigar in hand. A bodyguard in a black suit stood beside him. Both men looked over at once. Scarface's cigar fell to the floor. How did you get in here? I crawled out. Ye Chen said. Scarface reached for the gun hidden under the tea table. Ye Chen took one step forward, activated the gate of wound, and kicked the tea table. It slid hard into Scarface's knees, throwing him backward onto the floor. The bodyguard drew his weapon. Ye Chen opened the gate of rest, swayed aside, slapped the guard's wrist, and sent the gun flying. Then he drove one kick into the man's chest. The bodyguard slammed into the wall and slid down, unmoving. Scarface was on the floor, now back pressed against the sofa, face white as paper. Don't come closer. How much money do you want? I'll give it to you. Ye Chen crouched in front of him until they were eye level. What did I say when you buried me in the mass grave? Scarface's lips trembled. What did you say? I said that even as a ghost, I wouldn't let you go. Ye Chen said, but I didn't die, so am not a ghost. Scarface suddenly gritted his teeth. You think I wanted to kill you? That ye family compass of yours brought this on you. Daoist Shanyin said that thing could alter fate, that whoever got it could open the 8 gates. The Su family protected it and got wiped out. You kept digging into me and ruining my business. If you don't die, who should? Ye Chen's eyes went cold. The order to slaughter the Su family came from you. Scarface realized, head slipped, his face turned even whiter. Ye Chen stopped talking. He reached out, grabbed Scarface by the throat, and lifted him off the floor. The gate of death opened again. Black light surged from his palm into Scarface's chest. Scarface's eyes bulged, his lips moved. No sound emerged. Ye Chen let go. Scarface hit the floor, eyes still open, pupils already gone loose. The room was silent. Ye Chen stood there for a while, looking down at the corpse. There was no rage, no satisfaction, only a strange emptiness after everything had finally settled. He bent down, felt under the tea table, and found the gun. Then he walked out of the room, out through the kitchen's back door. Over the wall, the moon was bright. The van still sat on the side road. He got in, started the engine, and drove back toward the mass grave. 3 in the morning. Mass grave. The moon had already begun dropping westward, but it was still full. Ye Chen took a plastic bag out of the back seat. Inside were apples, oranges, and a full box of paper money from the People's Underworld Bank. He crouched before Su Wan's grave, set out the fruit, and opened the box of paper money. Su Wan back. A wisp of white smoke curled up from the grave mound, and Su Wan emerged. Ye Chen looked up and froze under the moonlight. Su Wan had changed. No more bluish-gray skin, no more black-purple lips, no more gray-white pupils. Her skin was as pale as fine porcelain, carrying a faint moonlit sheen. Her lips were now soft pink, gently pressed together. Her eyes were chestnut brown, bright and clear like autumn chestnuts. The scar on her face was still there, but no longer a ghastly wound. It had become a fine silver mark stretching from her left cheek to her chin, as if drawn there with a silver brush. Not ugly at all. If anything, it gave her a beauty that was hard to describe. The bloodstains on her white dress were gone, replaced by simple, pure white cloth. The ligature mark on her neck remained, but it had faded to a pale band. She looked human now, like a living person, like a beautiful young woman. Su Wan noticed his stare, lowered her head, and touched her own face. The corners of her lips curved up. What are you staring at? Never seen a ghost get prettier. You. Yek Chen started, then swallowed. How did you change? The resentment dispersed. So, the appearance slowly came back too. Su Wan crouched down, picked up an apple, and gave it a sniff. I can smell it, just not eat it. Fine. The thought counts. Ye Chen started burning the paper money. A whole box of People's underworld banknotes, complete with gold anti-counterfeit stamps. The green flames lit up half the graveyard. Suwan sat atop the grave mound and watched the fire. What about Daoist Shanyin? Crippled. Chen Ji Yuan. Dead. Scarface. Dead. Too. Suwan nodded and went silent for a long time. The firelight danced in her eyes. Like a funeral, delayed by 12 years, had finally arrived. My parents, she asked. Suddenly, Ye Chen took 3 sheets of yellow paper from his bag. Each had a name written on it. They were old talismans, had found in Daoist Shanyin's room. The backs marked with the birth dates of 3 members of the SU family. Their souls were never pinned down. Shanyin said, "Your parents had already moved on back then. Only you were left here." Su Wan froze. Then her eyes slowly reddened. "Good," she said softly. "It's good that they left." The paper money burned down, and the flames gradually weakened. "Ye Chen," she said suddenly. Leaving." He froze. "Leaving? To reincarnate?" Suwan shook her head. "Not to reincarnate. Someone from below has come. They say I've been blocking this road for 12 years and disturbing underworld order. So they're transferring me to a collective dormitory. 12 stray ghosts to a single bunk room." She sighed. "But I hid some of the paper money in my sleeve. Once I get there, I should be able to trade for a private room." Then she turned and looked at him. In the moonlight, that silver scar on her face gleamed. "Ye Chen, will you come again in the future?" Yi Chen stood up and brushed the dirt from his pants. Then he took the coin-sized bronze disc fragment from around his neck, the last core piece of the compass, and placed it in front of Su Wan's tombstone. "This stays with you," he said. "The gate of life can protect you. The open gate can break prohibitions. If anyone gives you trouble, turn it." Suwan looked down at the bronze disc, and something stirred in her eyes. "You're giving me the compass. Then what about you?" "I already memorized it." Ye Chen tapped his temple. Then his bronze tattoo. "The 8 gates are in my heart, not in the disc. This fragment still has power, but even without it, I can still use them." Suwan stared at him for a few seconds. Then, suddenly, she smiled, not the hoarse laugh from before, not the sharp, cursing tone Shed had when angry, a light, soft smile. "Very beautiful under the moon. Ye Chen, you're kind of interesting." She bent down, picked up the bronze disc, and carefully tucked it into her sleeve. Yi Chen turned and walked downhill. After several steps, Suwan called out behind him. "Yeah, Chen." He stopped. "Qing Ming Ghost Festival. New Year. Remember to come see me." "All right. And one more thing." Her voice turned softer, like wind brushing over grass tips. "Next time, don't just bring paper money. Bring osmanthus cakes, too. I want to eat them." Yi Chen stood in the darkness for a moment. He didn't turn around, but he nodded. He went down the slope. The van's headlights came on and drove slowly off along the mountain road. In the rearview mirror, the mass grave grew smaller and smaller. Moonlight spread over the wasteland, over the crooked tombstones, and over Suwan, sitting alone on her grave mound, holding an apple and looking down toward the mountain path. Her white dress fluttered softly in the night wind. The silver scar on her face looked like a thin river in the moonlight. 1 month later, Qing Ming Festival. Yi Chen climbed up to the mass grave carrying a bouquet of white chrysanthemums, a bag of paper money, and a box of osmanthus cakes. The bare stone marker at Suwan's grave was still there, but one thing had been added: the bronze disc fragment. It lay quietly in front of the tombstone, the 8 gates on its face faintly glowing. Ye Chen crouched down, set out the osmanthus cakes, and opened the paper money. Suwan. Here. No response. He waited a long time. No wisp of white smoke rose from the grave. Suwan. Wind blew through the wild grass, making a rustling sound. Somewhere in the distance, someone else was burning paper money, and the firelight flickered. Ye Chen lit the paper money, the green flames casting light across his face. He sat before the grave, and opened the box of osmanthus cakes, placing it beside the tombstone. There from that old shop in West City, I stood in line for 40 minutes, he said. Still, no response. Yi Chen lowered his head, watching the paper money get swallowed, bit by the flames. Did you already leave? He asked. For that collective dormitory. The wind blew over, carrying ash that landed on the back of his hand. He suddenly remembered the way she looked when she first appeared, drifting out from behind the tree trunk in her torn white dress, her face wounded, the rope mark around her neck, demanding 100 billion in ghost banknotes the moment she opened her mouth. Back then, Head thought she was a scammer. Later, Shed become prettier. Later, Shed smiled. Later, Shed said, "You're kind of interesting, Su Wan." He lifted his head and looked at the bare tombstone. If you're still here, turn the compass. The bronze disc fragment lay there, quietly before the grave. Not one of the 8 gates glowed. Ye Chen waited 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. Then he stood, brushed the dirt off his pants, and turned to go downhill. He had only taken 10 odd steps when a tiny sound came from behind him. Click! He spun around sharply. The character life on the bronze disc glowed, not green, a very faint blue-green light, like the first grass shoot pushing up through earth in spring. It lit once, then went dark. Ye Chen stood there, staring at the disc for a very long time. Night wind blew over him, carrying the smell of paper ash and a faint trace of osmanthus. Slowly, the corners of his mouth curved upward. Later, he would hear from a few old ghosts that Su Wan had never gone to any collective dormitory. She took that bronze disc and sat turning it in front of the underworld gates for 3 days and 3 nights. In the end, the ghost officer asked her what exactly she was doing. She said, "I'm waiting for someone." "Who are you waiting for?" "Someone who owes me 100 billion in ghost banknotes." The ghost officer looked at the bronze disc in her sleeve, then at the death register, where her name should have long since been crossed out, and finally let out a sigh before allowing her to go back. Su Wan. Yachen said to the wind, "What do you want to eat next time?" No answer came back from the wind, but he felt like he heard one anyway.